This is a story about finding the right partner. Kenny was in love with love. Growing up, he said that puppy love hit him hard. Any small heartbreak he had would linger for way too long. He loved getting lost in the emotion of love. It was like nothing else in life mattered. He wrote love poems to girls, he even wrote letters to his friends, and of course, he wrote love songs. Because the only thing that mattered to him as much as love did was music. Kenny knew that he wanted a career in music from the time he was in 8th grade. That was the year that his father died. Kenny's mother, Barbara, now had to support Kenny, plus his 5 brothers, as a single mother. They lived in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Barbara was a process manager at the Eli Lilly pharmaceutical plant, the company that would go on to make antidepressants like Prozac and weight loss drugs like Mounjaro. Kenny got his strong work ethic from his mother, but he didn't apply it to a traditional job. And his mother understood that. She didn't put pressure on him to get a regular job. She supported his music, and as Kenny said, she understood that he had these 2 obsessions, music and love. Now, as a teenager in the 1970s, Kenny was heavily into funk. He loved George Clinton, Parliament, Funkadelic, but he also had a softer side. He loved R&B like Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly, but he also loved bands like Bread, and he loved ballads by the Beatles. Some of his friends made fun of him, said he listened to waterfall music, but Kenny didn't care. He knew that he had this romantic soul, and everybody knew that he was a really special musician and a songwriter. He played guitar and sang backup in some cover bands, and then his first reasonably successful band was this band called Manchild. They got signed to a record deal with a label in Chicago, and they had a fairly big regional hit with this song called Especially for You. But it wasn't until the early 1980s that Kenny met the person that was going to be his partner on the way to stardom. Kenny had written a song called Slow Jam for this pretty established band called Midnight Star.
Play another slow jam, this time make it sweet, a slow jam.
Midnight Star also had their own production company called Midstar Productions, and they wanted to sign Kenny as a solo artist. They had their own studio in Cincinnati, Ohio. And one day Kenny is in there cutting a demo for Slow Jam, and when he walks out of the booth, there's this guy there that he sort of knows from the Indianapolis music scene, this drummer named Antonio. Kenny and Antonio had met a couple times. Antonio was from Cincinnati and had played in this band called Pure Essence, later just Essence, and currently he was in this band called The Deal, which he had started with the express purpose of getting a record deal, hence the name. The times they had met before, Antonio and Kenny hadn't really clicked, but for whatever reason this time they really hit it off. They're both really serious about making it as musicians and about being songwriters. Antonio said it was funny. They had lived in the same town for 5 years, they played the same clubs, they knew the same people, but they were never friends. And as soon as they became friends, it clicked and their careers took off. The Deal did get signed to a record deal to Dick Griffey's Solar Records. And they all moved out to Los Angeles to start working on their first record, and they asked Kenny to officially join the band. Although the singers in the band said he could only join on the condition he couldn't be the lead singer. They knew Kenny was a special talent and didn't want him overshadowing them. And The Deal did have some hits with songs like Body Talk and 2 Occasions. Kenny also had success in the 80s with his own solo albums, but it was as a duo that Kenny and Antonio found their biggest successes. They not only wrote songs together, but also produced them. And by the end of the 1980s, they started having hits. The first one was a song by the Whispers called Rock Steady. And they also did songs for Pebbles, who was Antonio's girlfriend at the time. They wrote some of Bobby Brown's biggest hits like Every Little Step and Roni. And the 2 of them were so successful that in 1989 they started their own record label. They named it after Antonio and Kenny's 2 nicknames. Antonio Reid, even though he grew up in Cincinnati, he wore this LA Dodgers cap as a kid, so he got the nickname LA. And Kenneth Edmonds, for obvious reasons, was known as Babyface. And L.A. Reid and Babyface's label, LaFace Records, became one of the biggest record labels of the 90s, with groups like TLC, Toni Braxton, Usher, Babyface's own solo work. L.A. Reid and Babyface, along with Daryl Simmons, who had been Babyface's bandmate back in that 70s band Manchild, were responsible for some of the biggest R&B hits of all time. Babyface had hit after hit in the 90s, with songs like TLC's Red Light Special, Madonna's Take a Bow, Toni Braxton's Another Sad Love Song. the iconic Boyz II Men hits End of the Road and I'll Make Love to You. And Babyface continues to be a legendary songwriter and producer, working with some of the biggest acts of today like Ariana Grande and SZA. And of course, almost all of those big hits were written about his favorite thing, love.
When can I see you again? And when can my heart beat again? When can I see you?